She thought he was just the janitor, quietly mopping the floors while her daughter struggled with math. But one day, she peeked into the hallway and saw him patiently explaining algebra, her little girl's eyes lighting up with understanding. In that moment, everything she thought she knew about people, and about him, was about to change forever. The office was buzzing as usual, a symphony of phones ringing, keyboards clacking, and footsteps echoing through the polished marble floors. She walked briskly down the corridor, her heels clicking sharply, the weight of deadlines pressing on her shoulders. As the CEO of a fast-growing tech company, her life was a constant rush, meetings, calls, and decisions that could make or break her career. She barely noticed the people around her, except when they interrupted her carefully curated world. But that day, something unusual caught her eye. At the far end of the hallway, a small figure crouched beside her daughter, scribbling equations on a notepad. She frowned, confused. That was the janitor, the quiet man who usually moved silently through the office, unnoticed. Why was he teaching her daughter math? The thought flitted through her mind, tinged with suspicion. She slowed, trying to make sense of the scene. Her daughter, shy and usually hesitant with numbers, was smiling, truly smiling, as she pointed at the page. The janitor's gentle patience and calm voice contrasted sharply with the hurried chaos of her world. For a brief moment, she realized she had overlooked him entirely, dismissing him as just another background figure in her life. Her curiosity stirred, a small, uneasy feeling she hadn't expected. Who was this man, really? And why did he care so much about her daughter's struggles? She walked on, but her mind lingered on that quiet, transformative moment in the hallway, unaware that it was only the beginning of a story that would challenge everything she thought she knew about people and about herself. Her daughter had always been a bright child, but math was her weakness. At home, she would sit at the kitchen table, pencil tapping against paper, frustration mounting with every problem she couldn't solve. The CEO had tried tutors, online classes, even weekend programs, but nothing seemed to click. She wanted her daughter to excel, to have opportunities she herself had fought so hard to attain, yet it seemed like no one could reach her where she struggled most. The janitor, on the other hand, had a quiet wisdom that went unnoticed by most. He moved through the office without fanfare, carrying cleaning supplies and a kind smile, speaking to no one more than necessary. But beneath the plain uniform and steady hands was a mind that had once thrived in classrooms, a passion for teaching that had never faded, even as life had led him to a different path. For the CEO, the contrast was stark. Here she was, accustomed to authority and influence, struggling to help her own child, while this man, dismissed by most as a background figure, seemed to hold the key her daughter needed. She couldn't ignore it. Curiosity gnawed at her. She began noticing small things. The way her daughter would hum happily after a session with him, the sparkle in her eyes as concepts finally clicked, and the patient kindness in his explanations that no one else had managed to give. Her initial assumptions began to crumble. The lines between status and skill, between appearance and true capability, blurred in ways she hadn't expected. She realized that the world she controlled in the office, with its titles and hierarchies, didn't dictate the true measure of a person. And in that quiet realization, she found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about the people she walked past every day. One afternoon, she lingered near the hallway, pretending to check her phone, though her eyes never left the scene. Her daughter sat cross-legged on the floor, notebook balanced on her knees, while the janitor leaned over, patiently pointing out each step in a math problem. He spoke softly, with a gentle clarity that made complex equations seem simple. She watched her daughter's brow unfurl, a hesitant smile spreading as understanding finally took hold. Her first instinct was skepticism. Why would he take the time? Surely, it wasn't his job. Maybe he was just being nice, filling in a gap she hadn't noticed, but part of her couldn't shake a creeping admiration. There was a calm authority in the way he taught, the kind of presence she had spent years cultivating herself in boardrooms and conferences. But here it was, applied not to profits or contracts, but to a child's confidence. She stepped closer, careful not to be noticed, and saw her daughter's eyes light up with excitement as she solved a problem correctly. The janitor's subtle nod of encouragement was almost imperceptible, yet profoundly affirming. In that moment, she realized that the quiet moments, the unnoticed gestures, often carried more impact than the loud, visible efforts she valued so highly in her own world. Her mind raced, questioning everything. Who was this man really? And how had she overlooked him for so long? The hallway, once just a passage through her office, had become a stage for something extraordinary, a lesson not just in math, but in humility, patience, and the hidden brilliance that can exist where we least expect it. Over the next few days, she found herself watching more closely, unable to resist the quiet fascination building inside her. She noticed small details she had never seen before, the way he adjusted his posture to her daughter's height, the careful choice of words, the gentle humor that kept her daughter engaged. It wasn't just teaching, it was mentorship, guidance delivered with kindness and respect. Yet with admiration came tension. She couldn't ignore the voice in her head, whispering doubts and biases she hadn't acknowledged before. He was just the janitor, after all. How could someone in that position possess such knowledge and patience? Colleagues might scoff if they knew she was paying attention to someone they considered invisible. And yet, the results were undeniable. Her daughter's confidence was soaring, her struggles fading like morning fog. She began asking subtle questions at home, trying to understand how her daughter was suddenly enjoying math. The answers were always the same. The janitor helped her, explained it in a way she could understand, and made learning feel like a game rather than a chore. Each story pierced her pride and slowly dismantled her assumptions about worth, talent, and the masks people wore. Cinematic moments unfolded in her mind. The janitor quietly sweeping the floors after the lesson, her daughter clutching her notebook with excitement, and the sun casting warm light through the hallway windows. She realized that true value often hid behind humility, and the people who make the biggest impact are not always the ones in power. The seeds of change had been planted, and her perception of the world, and of this quiet, extraordinary man, was beginning to shift. One evening, as the office emptied and the golden light of sunset spilled across the polished floors, she lingered near the hallway, unable to tear her eyes away. Her daughter was absorbed in a particularly tricky problem, her little brow furrowed in concentration. The janitor knelt beside her, patiently guiding her through each step, his calm voice breaking down the numbers in a way that made everything click. And then it happened. He explained a concept so advanced, so precise, that even she, the CEO accustomed to complex problem-solving, felt a jolt of surprise. Her heart skipped. This man wasn't just patient, he was brilliant. A rush of images flashed through her mind. The countless hours she had spent worrying over her daughter's progress, the expensive tutors who had failed to ignite even a fraction of her enthusiasm. And here, in the quiet, unassuming presence of the janitor, was the solution she had been searching for all along. Curiosity turned to awe, and awe into a deep, humbling realization. She had dismissed him based on appearances, relegated him to the background of her world, blind to the extraordinary potential that had been right in front of her. A quiet backstory began to emerge in her imagination, someone whose life had perhaps been full of brilliance and circumstance, now hidden beneath the simplicity of a uniform and mop. The emotional punch hit her hard. She had underestimated not just him, but the simple truth that greatness often wears no title, holds no office, and yet changes lives in ways no paycheck could measure. In that golden hallway, everything she thought she knew about status, intelligence, and worth began to unravel. The janitor, once invisible, had become the most important person in her daughter's world, and in her own, whether she was ready to admit it or not. The next morning, she found herself lingering longer than usual near the hallway, her curiosity impossible to ignore. She watched as her daughter approached the janitor with a stack of worksheets, eyes bright with anticipation. The janitor smiled warmly, guiding her hand as she solved each problem, celebrating every small victory with quiet encouragement. The bond between them was unmistakable, a bridge of trust and respect that transcended their differences in age, status, and circumstance. Tentatively, she stepped closer, finally allowing herself to speak. "Thank you," she said softly, almost afraid to break the delicate rhythm between teacher and student. He looked up, his eyes calm, and simply nodded as if the gratitude wasn't necessary, as if the joy of helping was reward enough. There was a humility there she had never encountered in the boardroom, a selflessness that left her both humbled and inspired. Her daughter, noticing her mother, beamed and proudly explained a problem she had just mastered. The CEO realized that the janitor had not only taught her daughter math, but also confidence, patience, and resilience, qualities that no textbook could ever impart. Each explanation, each gentle correction, had been a lesson in life as much as in numbers. The CEO felt a quiet transformation taking root within her. She had come to observe, to understand, but now she wanted to support, to nurture this connection rather than simply stand on the sidelines. The janitor's quiet wisdom had begun to reshape her perspective, teaching her that true influence often comes not from titles or wealth, but from patience, kindness, and the courage to invest in someone else's growth. The stage was set for a deeper understanding, one that would blur the lines between power and humility, wealth and worth, forever changing the dynamics of their intertwined lives. A week later, a challenge arose that tested everything they had built. Her daughter faced a major math test, one that could determine placement in an advanced program she had long dreamed of joining. Anxiety gripped both mother and child. The CEO felt the familiar pressure of expectation pressing down on her shoulders. She had tried everything: tutors, apps, late-night study sessions, but nothing seemed to prepare her daughter for this moment. The janitor, however, remained calm, his presence a quiet anchor in the storm. He sat with her daughter at the kitchen table after school, methodically reviewing concepts, turning panic into clarity with patience and encouragement. He broke down complex problems into steps her daughter could grasp, instilling confidence with each correct answer. The CEO watched from a distance, awe and humility mixing, as she witnessed someone she had once dismissed quietly working miracles. Tension mounted as test day approached. The daughter's nerves were raw, and the CEO's usual control and influence felt powerless in the face of uncertainty. Yet the janitor's steady guidance had left a mark. Her daughter approached the exam with a sense of calm determination, a spark of self-belief that had been missing for so long. When the results came, the impact was undeniable. Her daughter had excelled, achieving scores that far exceeded expectations. The CEO, overwhelmed with pride and gratitude, finally understood the full extent of the janitor's influence. In that moment, the hierarchy she had always relied upon, titles, status, wealth, felt irrelevant. True power, she realized, resided not in her office or corner suite, but in quiet dedication, humility, and the courage to lift someone else up. The emotional climax was complete. Admiration, respect, and transformation had replaced doubt, bias, and assumption. In the days that followed, the CEO knew she could no longer ignore the truth she had discovered. She approached the janitor privately, her voice tinged with both humility and gratitude. "I need you to know how much you've helped my daughter," she said, her eyes reflecting genuine respect. "You've done something no one else could. Thank you." He smiled softly, shrugging as if the praise were unnecessary. To him, teaching had always been its own reward, the spark of understanding in a child's eyes more valuable than any recognition or title. But the CEO insisting that the impact he had made deserved acknowledgement, not only privately but publicly. She began finding small ways to honor him, offering opportunities to share his knowledge, providing resources to support his teaching, and most importantly, treating him with the respect he had earned through his dedication. Her daughter, now brimming with confidence, proudly shared her progress, recounting lessons and victories with enthusiasm. The bond between child and janitor grew even stronger, and the CEO witnessed firsthand the transformative power of patience, humility, and genuine care. Each interaction was a reminder that greatness often hides in the most unassuming places, waiting to be recognized by those willing to look beyond appearances. The atmosphere in the office subtly shifted as well. Colleagues who had once overlooked him began to notice the positive change in her daughter, and with it, the quiet brilliance of the man behind the mop and broom. The CEO felt a deep sense of fulfillment, not from authority or achievement, but from witnessing the impact of compassion and mentorship. In honoring him, she honored a truth that would stay with her forever. True leadership is not measured by power or wealth, but by the lives you touch and the potential you nurture in others. Weeks passed and life settled into a new rhythm, but the changes lingered, subtle yet profound. The CEO noticed herself slowing down, paying attention to the people around her in ways she hadn't before. She greeted employees with genuine interest, listened more patiently, and reflected on the hidden strengths within her team. The janitor, once invisible, now carried a quiet respect throughout the office, not because of a title or recognition, but because of the undeniable impact he had made on her daughter's life. Her daughter thrived, no longer burdened by self-doubt. She approached challenges with curiosity instead of fear, tackling math problems with a newfound confidence. At home, laughter filled the rooms that had once echoed with frustration, and the bond between mother and daughter deepened, strengthened by shared appreciation for the man who had quietly guided them. The CEO often found herself recalling moments in the hallway, the golden light falling across the floors, her daughter's eyes lighting up with understanding, and the janitor's calm, patient presence. Those small, almost invisible moments had shifted everything, leaving a lasting imprint on her heart. She realized that life's most meaningful lessons often arrive in the quietest, most unexpected ways, carried not by wealth or power, but by simple acts of dedication and kindness. And as the office continued its busy hum, she walked the corridors with a new perspective, one that saw value and potential where she once saw only labels. The janitor remained humble, the daughter confident, and the CEO forever changed. A living testament to the transformative power of empathy, patience, and the courage to recognize greatness in unlikely places. The story left a lasting truth that resonated far beyond the walls of that office. Appearances can be deceiving, and titles can blind us to the extraordinary potential hidden in those we overlook. True greatness is not measured by wealth, status, or authority, but by the quiet impact we have on others, the patience we show, the knowledge we share, and the kindness we extend without expectation of reward. She realized that by underestimating the janitor, she had almost missed a lesson far more important than math: the value of humility, the courage to see people for who they truly are, and the transformative power of compassion. Her daughter had gained more than knowledge. She had witnessed integrity, dedication, and the beauty of learning from someone who truly cared. In the end, the CEO, her daughter, and the janitor had all been changed. Walls of pride and assumption had fallen, replaced with bridges of respect, admiration, and gratitude. The hallway where it all began had become a symbol, not just of lessons learned, but of lives transformed by empathy and understanding. It was a simple, timeless truth: never judge a person by their job, their status, or their appearance. Sometimes, the most extraordinary people are the ones who quietly change the world, one small act of kindness at a time. And in recognizing them, we discover not only their worth, but the better version of ourselves.